lanzamiento, aquí viene un batazo de Mundito entre right center field, la bola pica, se extiende, viene anotando Stott, empata el juego, también manda para la bola Turner anota y los Phillies se van arriba. Se prepara, Mundito en segunda, el lanzamiento, batazo profundo para el center field, la bola se va, Schwarber Bob, ¡campanazo! Aquí viene el lanzamiento, swing y lo ponchó. Ponche de Alvarado, amigos. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another week of Phillies Weekly. What a week, Jeff. The Phillies won 9 games in a row this week. I mean, not this week, between last week and this week, 9 games in a row. We lost yesterday, but the team is in 9-1 over the last 10 games. We have the best record in baseball. And look, there's nothing better than Phillies baseball when we're winning, brother.
Definitely not, Oscar. 34-19, I think we'll take that hanging on Memorial Day. It's a shame, though, that we just didn't have baseball today, at least Phillies baseball. I watched baseball. I know you probably watched a lot of baseball today, but
I'm on game 3 right now.
And you're on game 3. Okay, see, I'm on a replay of a game that happened 15 years ago, but that's okay.
With Doug Hawley on it. Well, we got a packed show. I mean, the Phillies are hot. We have a packed show, but I think there is a big question mark that I want to speak with our guests. We have 4 guests today, believe it or not. I mean, we have Tim Kelly, the one and only Tim Kelly. Roger McNamee is back with us today. And then we're going to have John Foley joining us. And look, what we have Nick Piccone, out of all people in the world, everything that him and the Atlanta Braves fans have against each other. This is going to be in full display this week when we play 3 games against the Braves. So with that said, let's bring on the guys. Just give me 1 second here. And there we go. I thought that was it.
Yeah, I thought that was the magic button there.
There we go. This is the magic button. There they are. Hi, guys. How are you? Tim, Roger, it's great to have you back.
It's great to be back.
Awesome, guys. Well, 9 games in a row. We lost yesterday for the first time in a while. Cable last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago pitched one of the greatest games that I've seen from a rookie and in the history of the Phillies. We go to Colorado, play 4 games there. Then we go to, Oakland, Sacramento. Sacramento now, we go play 3 out of 4, and it should have been 3 out of 3. What was your take on the week, Tim?
I mean, overall, I think it was good. You can talk about you only beat the Rockies and the A's, but if you hadn't beat those teams, there would have been a lot of people upset about it. So they won all 4 in Colorado, which I get how bad the Rockies are, but that's been a terrible place for them to play in recent years in Coors Field. So they got that done. They won 2 out of 3 in Sacramento. You can say they should have won Sunday, but they also could have lost Friday or Saturday. So it evens out to a degree. I think there's serious concerns about the bullpen. I think that was clear over the weekend. But the lineup and starting rotation, they're both in pretty good places right now.
The Rockies are not even at 10 wins already. They have 9 wins on the year, 9 wins and 45 losses. My goodness.
Worst start since 1895.
Wow. I mean, there you go, Jeff. Roger, how are you, brother?
I'm well, but I want to point out that the day after we left, the Rockies beat the Yankees.
Hey,
right? Number 9. Their 9th win was against a real major league team. And, to me, I mean, again, you watch those games and great teams win all of those games, right? And we did. Now, does that mean we're a great team? No, but that is the minimum requirement. You got to beat up on the lesser teams. And this team is doing that. And I think it really goes to why the starting pitching matches matters so much. Because when you're playing bad teams, starting pitching is just way more valuable.
And I think one more thing was added this week, which is how well our bats, I mean, there were some bats that were pretty silent throughout the year that suddenly woke up. I mean, that home run on Saturday. And by the way, Roger, you were at 2 of those games in Sacramento, right?
I was. And I will tell you, Oscar, and for all the people who are listening, the experience of a game in Sacramento is fantastic for the fans, but it is murder on the players. I mean, there's several things that you notice right away. The first is that Schwarber's going back and forth to dead center field to get to a batting cage, right? Because there is no access to the batting cage from the dugout. So you have to go across the field. And any player that wants to warm up before, coming in, like, so that you saw this with Marsh and you saw this with Stott, they had to go running out to center field from the dugout. The other thing you noticed was the pitchers were all flailing. It was almost like that mound in Sacramento had ice on it, because, you saw Wheeler slipping. You really saw Romano slipping. And from his warm-up pitches, it was obvious Romano was going to have a terrible outing because he wasn't getting a grip.
That's an interesting perspective. You only get, Jeff, in Phillies Weekly, huh?
I mean, hang on. That Saturday night game was one of the greatest games I have ever seen in person.
That was unbelievable.
It was truly unbelievable. I mean, we stake Christopher Sanchez to a nice lead. He can't hold it, right? We get ahead again. They catch us. Then they pass us because JT drops a really basic foul pop. And then Kepler, who's had a hard time this season, hits a pinch hit home run in the 9th inning off of Mason Miller on 101 pitch. 101.
He can hit a fastball.
And then bases loaded in the 10th, and we do nothing. 2 strikeouts. And then they come up, they bases loaded, they got nobody out. And Marsh makes a play that, honest to God, not one person in that ballpark thought he was going to make. I mean, that was just...
It felt like Shane Victorino's throw out in 08. It really did.
It really did. I mean, just to me, you're sitting there in the stands and thinking, this is never going to work. Ball goes to the outfield. Your head is going to the exit.
The runner, it looked weird how he came out of third base, which is, he looked slow coming out, and then that was it. That's all we needed.
Yeah, the poor guy, he was the same guy who did the interference play on Schwarber when Schwarber absolutely understood the really esoteric rule, right? So the guy had a really bad game, but then yesterday, he drove in 2 runs in the first inning and, saved his career.
Tim, let's go over this a little bit. Week 9, 6-1, best week all year for us. Overall, we're at 34-19. At home, 17-8. How we left it in that game, the Mick Abel pitch at Citizens Bank Park, and then we basically took it to another level away from home at 17-11. The Mets won earlier today, so they're 1.5 games. We're 1.5 games ahead of them. We were 1.5 games behind them. And they've gone the week 4-6. So we've been able to catch up and even pass them, taking advantage that we're playing under 500 teams. And then we're 8.5 games ahead of the Braves. Any thoughts how you look at these numbers and how you look at this week?
Well, I would say this week you have the Braves coming in. You're not going to clinch the NL East this week. But if you can win 2 out of 3 or sweep the Braves, like you put an even bigger deficit in the NL East. And the Braves have shown the last few years that they're a team that once the calendar flips to like July or August, they know how to win games and close deficits. So I think you want to build up as much of a lead in the NL East as possible. And obviously the Mets are in there too. But the Braves are a team that they just got Ronald Acuna and Spencer Strider back. They're going to be a better team than what they've been. At some point, they're going to get Jerks and Profar back as well. So I think you want to build up a lead on the Braves while you can.
Yeah, and they got the big guys both, and we'll talk more about Strider and Acuna momentarily. Acuna is already smacking that baseball. So last 10 games, the Phillies are 9-1. In March, we were 3-1. April, 14-12, and now we're plus 10 in the month of May, which is fantastic. Now we come back to play the National League East. We still have 10 games left, and we'll when John comes in, we'll talk a little bit about the remaining schedule. But we'll have 10 games against the Mets and 10 games against the Braves over the next the rest of the season. 3 of them with the Braves this week. The National League East 7-8, and then we're 13-12. And it's interesting. We were 13-15 2 days ago. But a team went up below 500, and that forced them to be now 13-12. So, this is a moving part of this, who is above 500 and who is below 500. So we talked a little bit about the impressions of the series with Colorado and the A's. Anything else beyond that, guys, before we start going through hitting, starting pitching, and then relief pitching in general? Anything else you want to bring on the A's or the Colorado series?
I mean, they're just taking care of business against bad baseball teams, which is what they should do. They caught the A's on a long losing streak, and the A's almost kept that long losing streak until pretty much the last till the 8th inning of Sunday. So I mean, look, I got to give the Phillies credit. They're taking care of business. They had the best road record in baseball, which I did not think they were going to have at the end, pretty much the end of May. But here we are, and it doesn't feel like last year where they went on that ridiculous 29-6 run, which hasn't been done for this franchise since 1892. But look, they're still a really good team, and they're putting themselves in position. And yeah, I have my concerns. I definitely have concerns with the bullpen. Roger and I talked about this text messaging last week, but it's definitely something that, I mean, I think that they're going to improve as the summer goes on. It's just, we just got to be patient right now.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think if you said before the series that Mason Miller was going to pitch in all 3 games, you would have thought the Phillies would lose 2 or maybe even get swept. So the fact that he pitched 3 times and you won 2 of those, it's pretty impressive, I think. Even though the A's are not a good team, they have some exciting younger players, but they're not a good team. They're not ready to win right now. They don't have an ownership group that is spent in a long, long time. But Mason Miller, even though he's not having a great season this season, was as good as it gets out of the bullpen last year, and I still think we all believe is a really gifted closer. So to get to him 4 runs in 3 appearances is impressive.
Well, that's the thing.
You cannot pitch in the middle of the plate with that fastball, man. Whatever fastball you throw, I mean, that shot by Kepler was incredible, man. What a shot.
But I haven't done the analysis. Maybe one of you guys has. But I think our record against the best stoppers in the majors is uncannily good. We consistently beat, lots of guys who you normally think of, right? We had a great record against Finnegan, against Tanner Scott, against Diaz for the Mets, right? I mean, it's interesting to me that our team, for whatever reason, the 9th inning with the other team's really good guy doesn't phase us as badly as it does most teams. And to me, that becomes a really big issue if you make the playoffs.
We'll talk more about that as we go, Roger. Here's an interesting stat here. We went up 0.2 runs this week, just how we were able to hit. 3 weeks ago, we were 12th in baseball in runs per game. Now we're 6th at 491. If you look at some of the stats here, I'll move this away. You look at how we were 11th and 12th 3-4 weeks ago, and now we're number 6 in baseball. So we're definitely, that is an area that we have significantly improved. And take a look at the home runs. Last week we were 18th in home runs. We hit 12 home runs this week, and we're now 10th in baseball. So definitely we've seen, and also our OPS have significantly improved. So you can see here that hitting was a big part of our week today. Our starting pitching is still 4th in baseball in ERA. So if there is one area that I saw some significant improvement is our slugging this week was significantly better than it's been over the last few weeks. Still, we're leaving a lot of runners on base. Here's runners left in a scoring position. We're at 487, improved from 393. We're still 27th in baseball. So we're getting a lot of people on base, but we're not bringing them home. And that is an area that we need to significantly improve to be a much more effective team moving forward. But we definitely saw some significant improvement on our hitting this week than we have seen over the last. Do you guys, attribute that to anything? Is it a combination that we're hitting better and we're facing, putting starter rotations? What's your take on the hitting so far and what happened this week?
I think it's a little bit of everything. You had Alec Bohm has gotten going a little bit. Bryce Harper's been on a great stretch. Trey Turner has been pretty consistent offensively throughout the course of this whole season. And then obviously Kyle Schwarber has been an MVP level performer. So I think you look at the four of the key guys in your lineup, and they're all performing relatively well at the same time.
here's where you have our hitting. I mean, this is for the season. So when you start looking at kind of where our hitting is today, that's basically kind of where we stand right now. You see Schwarber there at a 974 at the top. Sosa, we're not going to talk too much about Sosa, but Bryce Harper then at 822. Harper's season, I mean, your thoughts, Tim, on Harper's season so far?
I just think it's so goofy when every year he has one of these stretches where he doesn't go well and people talk about, oh, are you concerned or what? It's Bryce Harper. Like, he's going to figure it out. I think he's earned that benefit of the doubt, and he's come through and had a really good stretch. So it shouldn't be surprising, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Roger, any thoughts on
I want to build on what Tim said, because I think there's actually a pattern in the hitting. You know, there are some games where in the first inning we see 23, 24, 25 pitches. I mean, obviously when you do that, you're tiring out the other guy's starter and you set yourself up to beat up on the bullpen. But we had a lot of games over the last, really ever since the Mets series, we've had a ton of games where we've put up 20 plus pitches in the first inning and, you know, made the other side really, really work for it early, gotten ahead. And then everything loosens up. You get into the bullpen and you just, you know, pound the ball. And when I look at our pitching, when you pull Nola out of that starting pitching number, that ERA becomes, I mean, obviously everybody's got somebody who's a stinker, but I'd be willing to bet that you pull out our one stinker and it has a bigger impact on a relative position than other teams' big stinker has on them. Because Nola's he's just had a really rough time.
Here's last week. I mean, you see Trey Turner, I mean, heating up big time. I mean, showing some power in the West Coast. He's up to 3 home runs. He hit 3 home runs last week. 6 RBIs, was our number 1 guy in RBIs, followed by Harper with 5. Schwarber had 4, as well as Alec Baum. But these are the hitters that are going to take us to the promised land. If you start looking at those guys, I mean, Turner, I mean, Schwarber, Harper. I mean, the interesting group is on the bottom. Now Castellanos is on the bottom group. And when you look at the year, I mean, Castellanos is not, I mean, his OPS has significantly declined. Now he's below the average of Major League Baseball at 709. So definitely there is something going on. I mean, he's on his one of his cold spells, let's put it that way, with regards to Nick Castellanos, and he needs to start heating again soon. But definitely we've seen significant improvement, particularly, I mean, I would say Turner's show some major significant improvement, as well as Kepler and Alec Baum, which are guys that are going to be key if we want to win this down the road.
I think this is going to, I shouldn't say unnoticed, but it hasn't really been pointed out as often how Alec Boehm's all of a sudden hitting in the 260s and Brandon Marsh is all of a sudden solid major league outfielder again, which I always thought he was, but he's not playing against lefties. He's better as a platoon guy. I think they're using him to the best of his abilities right now. And quite honestly, that trip to the IL was probably the best thing for him. He could get right. I know he was battling something there with the hamstring, but look, he was able to get things correct. I mean, the guy, I don't think he had an in April, if I'm mistaken. So what he's doing in May is more than enough for them. And, you know, Boehm's back to being Boehm. I would love the power numbers to be up, but at least he's in the baseball. And the guys that you need to make contact on this team are doing it.
Well, I would look at the one that stands out to me is Nick Castellanos. He works very hard. He plays every day. There's value to that. But there's a reality that this is the 4th year of an $100 million contract, and very rarely in it has he performed up to the level of his contract. I mean, that's just kind of the reality. And I get he's a streaky player. You knew what you're getting into in that regard. But you sign someone for $20 million a season, and you expect an OPS above 800 every year, and you haven't gotten that.
Yeah, and the other thing this week is Stud has been cooling off over the last couple of weeks. I mean, he had a 263 on base percentage this week. If he's going to be leadoff, we're going to need a lot more than that.
Yeah. It's, go ahead, Tim.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I go back and forth on this because Roger mentioned seeing the pitches, and that is super helpful that he sees the pitches. I think it's helped Trey Turner a lot. at the same time, he's probably your 5th or 6th best hitter, and you're giving him the most at bats.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, but something to monitor.
Also, another thing too. I believe it was Saturday. It was his first start against a lefty since what, April 8th. Like, I mean, look, and I always give credit to Rob Thompson for putting these guys in the best situations where they could hit, but your leadoff hitter is essentially a platoon player. That's never a good sign.
Well, and they've kind of said they've refused to say they're platoons. Left field and second base are platoons at this point.
Yeah,
fair.
But in fairness, he started more than half the games on this very successful run since the Mets series. And, he had a bad week this week, right? JT hasn't had a good week. He's had a couple of good games, but he hasn't had a good week all year. And I think JT is a much bigger problem for this offense, in my opinion, than Stott. But I worry. It's funny. When I think about what I worry more about Kepler than I worry about Marsh, and I worry more about Stott than I do about Bohm. And those were the guys that last time I was on we were focused on. And, Marsh. I totally agree with Tim. Marsh is putting up exactly what they want from him right now. And of course, that throw was crazy. I mean, that was just a win. But as I look at this, I worry a lot about JT as an offensive player. I mean, he's going to set a personal record for hitting in double plays, and I believe he's leading the majors in hit into double plays. Or if he's not, he's really close. And the timing is just awful, right? I mean, you had first and second, nobody out, and he hits into another double play yesterday, and it was too bad because it was a situation where going the other way was the obvious thing to do.
Yeah, he's somebody he's at the stage of his career now where he probably should be hitting 8th in the lineup, 7th or 8th in the lineup. He's still valuable in terms of he's still really good at throwing runners out that are stealing.
Really?
But taking time or the amount of time he's played at catcher wears on you. And we talk about guys that have aged well. Yadier Molina aged well, but he was not the same player from 35 to 40 that he was from 30 to 34. And JT is out of position now where the standard is different. Like in 2020 or 2019, outside of Bryce Harper, he was probably your best offensive player. It's not that anymore. And I think people need to adjust their expectations with him, and it'll make for an interesting contract negotiation if both sides want to stay together after this season, because he's not the same offensive player he once was.
But it would help if he changed his approach, if he stopped trying to pull the ball so much. He had a good run at the very beginning of this season for a period of last season when he was hitting the ball the other way. And I just think all of our hitters do better when they do that.
I think the reality with JT is he's who he is now, and I think this is what we're going to see moving forward, and we just need to adjust expectations.
Hang on, a month and a half ago, we would have said that about Trey Turner, and he has really executed. I mean, his hitting style is just really different right now.
He's also younger than JT too, and he's not a catcher.
Well, take all the pounding. I mean,
I think you can say he is who he is about him as a defender. As a hitter, he has absolutely had an excellent season. As a defender, you saw Saturday night a lot of the same issues that have kind of plagued him since he's been on the Phillies.
I had a front row seat for that. Well,
yeah, you did. So we got our dear friend John. John, how are you, brother?
Great. How you guys doing?
It's great to see you. Let's run to a couple of slides here. So the starting rotation continues to drive this team. I'm gonna change this momentarily here. So our starting rotation continues to drive. 3.22 ERA, 4th in baseball. I'll show a few more slides in a second about it. Let me go back here. There you go. So you can see kind of where we are there. So our starting rotation, 4th in ERA. We're 10th allowing home runs, but we pitched the 2nd most innings as a starting rotation. We're 13th in base on balls, and then we're number 1 in Ks in all of baseball. And then we're number 1 in wins. We have 22 wins, and our relief pitchers have 12 wins, which is 8th in all of baseball. But our ERA is 4.61, which is 23rd. And then you see here some of the additional numbers there. We're 3rd in save opportunities, a number one in total saves in baseball. I think it was San Diego, if I recall correctly. So some very, very interesting numbers that our pitching is showing. Let's talk about the bullpen for a second, because it's going to be interesting what happens this week, particularly based on what Roger was saying about the mound and the issues with the mound. Wheeler was very outspoken about the issues with the mound. But, I mean, without a doubt, Romano did not look good. His velocity was significantly down. And, again, let's give him a break and see what happened. But Romano coming on back-to-back days did not look like the same pitcher that pitched the day before.
Anybody he's a guy that I think you need to manage his workload a little bit more. The problem is right now you could say the same thing about Strom. Like you have three guys that you really trust. I think right now Romano, Strom, and Kerr, and none of them have been without fault this season either, or without blips on the radar. And it's just difficult because you have a lot of other guys in this bullpen that if you had one or two of them, you'd be fine, but you have 4 or 5 guys that should be like the 7th or 8th guy in most bullpens. And like when Carlos Hernandez is throwing the ball in the strike zone, he could be a closer. The problem is you have no idea batter to batter, let alone game to game, whether you're getting control, and that makes it difficult to kind of plan for anything.
Yeah, and we talked about this being a problem even before the Alvarado situation, when we said, you really only have 4 guys you rely on, and now you're down one, maybe the one you're relying on the most. So it's an issue, and it'll remain an issue.
My thing is too, like, they haven't used a reliever in 3 consecutive games since 2023. Tim, I think it was September 2023, and Kerr came in. I know he only had one pitch in one of those, and they had a day off, but it's very rare to see Rob Thompson do that. But this is the hand he's dealt right now.
So I put the stats the last 2 weeks and then the last week, and I mean look at some of the numbers there overall for our entire pitching staff.
Yeah, I mean Strom yesterday, he was someone that his velocity seemed a bit down too. So you need to find a balance between, you got to bridge this till the trade deadline or until you sign somebody, or maybe both. You got to bridge it till then, but you don't want to get to the trade deadline and you've burned Romano and Strom and they're just cooked for the season. So
and they signed Lucas Sims, but he's not been a reliable reliever wherever he stopped. I mean, he was initially in Cincinnati, and then last year I think he was between Boston and Tampa or something like that. Yeah. I mean, it's like,
well, and
he's not being reliable.
The one thing you can do when you have this good of a starting rotation is try and get more out of the rotation, which I think is what they did yesterday. I was surprised Luzardo went back out for the 7th inning. Not because his pitch count wasn't bad. It was 82, 83, but they mentioned this on the broadcast, already pitched more innings than he did last year. And you want to be cautious with him, because as great as he's been, he's having a very similar season to what Ranger Suarez was at this time last year. And you don't want to get in a situation where you burn through him in the first couple months of the season, and then he's not the same guy down the stretch and into the playoffs.
John, what's your take? What's your take on the bullpen?
I think you're right. You're hoping to get more out of the starters. That is the heart of the team. And as great as they're pitching, if you wanted to compare it to last year a little bit, last year you had a lot of games where they're going 8 innings, games in there.
Oscar, we can hear your keyboard.
Yeah, no, I'm not touching. I'm not. I think it's Roger.
Oscar's feeding me what to say here off.
He's giving you the numbers as you speak, John.
Roger, I hope you're not firing anybody.
I was sending Tim a message to correct a thing that he said a moment ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John. Sorry.
With Luzardo, I wasn't too surprised to see him come back out to start that inning. That 7th inning, I was surprised that they let him finish it. I think that was maybe Rob wanting to see something out of Luzardo for the future going forward. I think by the time there was a point where he was over 100 pitches, with just one out in the 7th, and I thought, all right.
I mean, Sosa and Rojas saved I mean, it was against Strom, right? That he got that shot to center field that he stole that ball. I think it was in the 8th inning. Look,
yes,
Strom has not pitching over the last 2 or 3 games. He's been lucky, to be honest with you. He's hit a lot of balls directly into guys, and yesterday, I mean, he gave up 2, and that's a problem. I mean, look at the numbers, guys. I mean, look at the numbers here. Hernandez, the last week is a 10.80 ERA, 2 weeks, 8.31. Ruiz, 10.80 ERA coming back this week. I mean, Romano this week was 16.2, despite going 1-1 in save opportunities. And over the last 2 weeks, he's gone 3-3 in save opportunities. He's looked outstanding. He looked like in 4 games in a row, I mean, like he was the best closer in baseball. And then when you overused them back-to-back days, I mean, he looked like a different pitcher.
They are so fortunate Tanner Banks has been pitching as well as he has over the last couple of weeks, because they need a second lefty right now, and he's given that to him, but they need a third lefty as well. That's why I'm concerned, because they just don't have really that lefty in the system. They're trying Max Lazar right now, but you're seeing the result there. I don't know if he's ready or not. He needs to pitch more.
Yeah, well, and I mean, we know this is the
Jose Go ahead, John. Sorry.
I was just, and it just confirms what we've known for weeks now, that the bullpen is the weak spot of the team, and really the only way to handle it right now is either for some guys to step up unexpectedly, or for the stronger parts of your team to cover. Whether that's guys going 7 innings instead of 6, maybe 8 innings instead of 7 on Wheeler, and hit the ball and make sure that these games aren't close at the very end.
Yeah, and I would say another one of the guys, Jose Ruiz, is someone Rob Thompson really likes, and he had some decent stretches last year. Like, he was a useful pitcher last year. He hasn't been good this year. Before the injury, since the injury, they need better from him, or eventually, like, you have a bunch of these guys, Ruiz, Hernandez, that are out of options, so you can't even really cycle them out. So eventually, either you pitch better, or maybe somebody is DFA'd ultimately.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the reality. Quick question for you guys. They changed the rotation, putting Taiwan back in the he was going to pitch against Atlanta tomorrow, and then he got moved out, correct?
Yeah, he's pitching Friday.
What was that?
He'll pitch Friday against the Brewers.
Is that the plan now?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So, I don't know. Is Mick Abel coming back anytime soon?
Oh, he just pitched Saturday, so.
Right. I think what they were doing with this is, honestly, the Braves series is more important than the Brewers series. So you get 3 of your best up. And also, obviously, I wasn't in Sacramento. From reading what Matt Gelb wrote, Wheeler wanted to stay on normal rest, so he now gets to do that, pitching on Wednesday instead of Thursday. So I think, all things considered, it definitely makes some sense to get those guys up. And I think Taijuan Walker is somebody that benefits maybe from a little extra rest between starts too.
Sure. His velocity definitely has improved significantly.
Well, the Abel start, I believe, pushed everybody back a day.
Yeah.
So this gets back onto normal track.
Okay. Got it.
Can I just say one thing in favor of Rob Thompson here? Sure. I mean, the save on Saturday night when he turned it over to the kid, that was looking at this team and going, I cannot put Romano out there. I cannot put Strom out there. I'm going to have to do this with the kid. And he rose to that. The kid rose to the occasion, right? And I personally was covering my eyes, because it just seemed like you were putting a lot of pressure on him in that situation. And he walked a guy, but that's all he did. Everything else, he got 3 guys out. And I think when you get to September and October, trusting people that way, and saying, hey, dude, you're a Philly now, okay? You got to pitch like one. That's a big deal.
That's a fair point, Roger.
And I'm just so impressed with the way Rob does this. And, I think when he sat down with Kerr before Saturday, he goes, dude, you had 1 pitch, then you had whatever it was, 6 pitches or something the second time. I need you to come and do this. And somehow Kirkland got through it.
Well, and he's the one that if one of those 3 has to be a horse, I know they protected him the last few years, but Kerkering is 23. Strom and Romano are in their 30s.
Yeah.
Romano had an elbow problem last year. Strom, like you've seen the difference. You've seen it with Aaron Nola. Strom had the shoulder thing in spring training, and not that he was someone that was reliant on throwing 98, but there still is a big difference between when you're throwing 94 or 92. And so with Matt Strom, maybe you need to be a little more willing to pick your spots on exactly when you put him in, because you don't want him at 92. You want him at 93, 94. He's more effective that way. So if that means he has to pitch 2 days out of 4 or 5 instead of 3, then that's how you got to make it work.
Let's go over this. John, take us over this slide. There are a few slides here that John wants to take us over that I thought they were really, really interesting.
Yeah, so Oscar and I were talking about this during the week, and the story that's out there about, it seemed like anytime you tried to say anything complimentary about the Phillies this week, you had to preface it with, I know they're playing X, Y, I know they're playing these teams, but I really don't think that's necessary. I mean, there's nothing unique or special about this good team beating up on bad teams. It's long been the recipe for getting to the postseason and winning championships. You hold your own against the other good teams, and you take advantage and you beat those bad teams. How many years were there in the aughts where we had talk about the pesky Marlins or this other pesky team that wasn't very good but seemed to have the Phillies number? And it's not so much they had their number, it's just those Phillies teams weren't that good.
Look at the 2022 team when we went to the World Series. We were 34-47 against teams above 500.
And we weren't judging it, and we weren't judging that team, right? It was more of, okay, they got to the playoffs and we'll see what happens. And it's just funny how people backing up John here. It's just funny how people like to judge a baseball team when they're not looking at the totality of it.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of the football mentality where folks always are looking at, well, who did they play? And it could be wildly different. In baseball, this is all going to even out. I mean, the schedules are damn near identical within a league. So the idea of qualifying everything they do based on the teams they've played can get frustrating. I mean, I get the instinct, but it can be frustrating. And I think it's not an accurate representation of what this team's accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. Here is what remains on the schedule. So go ahead, John.
Yeah, so 109 remaining. So that's the 573. That's the winning percentage of teams.
That's how much the teams we're playing against 12 teams that are above 500, and we are playing against 12 teams that are below 500, and these are the records. Yeah.
And you got to remember, there's a ton of teams that are right around 500 too. So these numbers are constantly in flux.
That's what I was saying in the beginning of the conversation. We were 13-15, and we said, well, we were having a hard time beating the 500 teams, and then suddenly, like, a team loses a few games, and then the whole thing changes.
Right. And by definition, especially early in the season, if you're beating a team, then they're much more likely to be under 500.
But I think what's most impressive is the 21-7 against teams that are below 500. You're beating the poor teams. I mean, you're beating the teams that you're supposed to beat, and then the old axiom, you have to beat the teams, the bad teams, and you have to split with the good teams. And I think that the team is doing that. And that's why they have the best record in baseball at 34-19.
Yeah, I mean that's the easiest way to do it. I mean you could do it the other way around, I suppose.
I wouldn't like that as much.
And and they did. They took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. They took 2 out of 3 from the Cubs. It's not like you see them folding against the top tier competition.
No, but there is one thing we definitely have to do better, John.
Yeah. I mean, this is a fair point. When we talk about head-to-head matchups, 2 teams that you are going to need these Phillies to step up against are the Mets and the Braves. I mean, if you want to win the division, you have to beat the other good teams in your division. And 1-5 so far, not getting it done. And the Mets in particular are scary because there's the cloud of last postseason hanging over the Phillies' heads, and then to get swept this year. That's in particular the Mets are an issue. The Braves.
And I thought our starting pitching held his own in both of these series. The issue was the relief pitching, and particularly in the Mets series, we couldn't hit anything. 2.7 runs a game in that series.
Yeah, and the Mets pitching has been fantastic. Not just against the Phillies, but it's a problem they're going to have to solve because this Mets team is the team that's right there in their way.
Tim, any thoughts when you look at this?
Yeah, I mean, Citi Field has become a tough place for them to play the last few seasons. So clearly they need to do better there and better against the Mets in general. The Braves, they've had kind of a weird run with too, where for a few years they were terrible against the Braves in the regular season and then seemed to have their number in the playoffs. So it's early. It's a small sample size. You play each team one series, but yeah, you got to be better. And some of that's just going to come down to your stars performing in those games, I think, and putting you in a situation where maybe you don't need a one-run save in the ninth inning.
I think a key number here is 7 home games and 3 away games. So, it's not 6 and 3 or 6. There's what, a 4-game series in there somewhere with the Braves. I think I'm trying to remember how the schedule works.
Yeah, it's 4. We got 4 games at home in 2 series against the Mets and the Braves.
Yeah, so that's a big advantage. And you had the Rockies 4 games on the road. I mean, who had thought the Rockies would be as bad as they were? But you got to take advantage of these home games, especially when you're really good at Citizens Bank Park.
Yeah, the 4-game series against Atlanta is in the month of August, at the end of August. August 28th to the 31st. And then the Mets series is on September the 8th to the 11th.
Those are two big series right in the heart of when the Eagles football starts, by the way, Oscar.
Well, it's right before the Phillies go out to the West Coast in that second. I'm not a fan of West Coast series, especially the 10 o'clock start times. And what's weird is this year the Phillies are going to do it in the middle of September, which is not usually.
Dodgers and Arizona, we have them.
What's crazy, Tim? They used to do that every single year before 1994. They used to have like a September road trip. So it's kind of weird like that they do it now in the expansion. I shouldn't say the expansion era, in the wild card era.
Yeah, and I mean, in theory, you're competing with the Dodgers and Diamondbacks for seeding, maybe the wild card in the case of the Diamondbacks, who knows. But, yeah, it still feels a little weird to be going to the West Coast that late in the season.
Have we noticed this at all? Did they have any 10 or like 12 game, like any 10 or 12, 10 game homestands or 10 game road trips? That's what I meant to say.
I don't think so. I mean, to my best knowledge, they don't.
I have the schedule right in front of me. No, we don't.
Yeah, which is rare.
Yeah, that's really weird.
Basically, the longest thing. No, it's 2 series each from here out.
Yeah, we actually play 10 games on August the 8th through the 17th. We got a weekend game against Texas on August the 8th, and then we play Washington the following weekend, and then Cincinnati in between for a 3-game series. That's a 4-game series against Washington. Actually, that's my fault. That's away. Those are away games. We got
right. 10. So you're actually absolutely right, Oscar. That's 10 there, right? Or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, but there's no 10-game homestand. I did take notice of that when I'm like, circle of games are going to cover on the calendar, and I'm like, I don't see it.
Well, no, but to be fair, we have that period starting in mid-August with Seattle, then Washington home, then we go to the Mets for 3, and then we have Atlanta for 4 at home. Okay, so that's because it's just up to the Mets and back, so there's no real travel. And you've got 10 games out of 13.
Quick question, John. Any thoughts? I mean, before we lose you here, any thoughts on the Atlanta series from your perspective?
I think this is a chance to go ahead and build momentum. You've beat up on those bad teams like we talked about, and now to take on a division rival, take the next step, take care of business against an Atlanta team that really hasn't hit its stride yet. And keep it going.
Wonderful, John. Thank you so much for joining us, and also for your valuable perspective, kind of where the team is. He always, John, every week brings us a tough question. Next week, hopefully, we're winning. We're above that we're significantly above and not 13-12 against 500 teams.
Sounds good. Fingers crossed. Take care, guys.
Take it easy, John. Thank you so much, brother. So John departs, and then here comes the one and only. Let's see. There's the man, Nick Piccone. The great Nick Piccone is here in the house.
Appreciate you having me.
The MVP. How you doing, brother? What's going on?
Hanging in there, man. I'm looking at the schedule as you guys were talking about it, and right now, I just hope they lock up a playoff spot before the last series of the season because they're playing the Twins. Cody Clemens, man, if he's still there, I do not want to. I don't want to see him that last series do something against us.
Yeah, I saw Carson today, the ex outfielder for the Cardinals. Was watching the Orioles versus the Cardinals games, and he absolutely went against them big time today. So very good point. And Cody is hitting really, really well.
Yes, he started it up.
Absolutely. So, Nick, talk to us a little bit how your views on the season, how you've seen it from your kind of unique perspective as a major influencer in the Philly area. Just walk us through kind of how you've seen the season and all the dynamics that are going on with the Braves. By the way, RCI is gone in Atlanta.
That's a shame. That's a bummer.
Attaboy.
Sorry to see that. Sorry to see that. It to me, there's a lot of similarities so far this season and last season. Beating up on the good teams or beating up on the bad teams, I should say. Some weird series here and there against the Cardinals. I don't necessarily think the Cardinals are a better team, but seem to have their number this year. But I don't think we see them anymore. I think they got those two series out of the way. Obviously, the Mets sweep was a downer. But I mean, this team is good enough to compete with the best teams in the league. There's no reason to think they shouldn't win this series against Atlanta coming up this week. I mean, like, they could have won the series in Atlanta earlier this season. I mean, you have that Johan Rojas error that everyone believes they lost the game because of that. I don't necessarily think that's the reason they lost that game because they wound up taking the lead anyway. But I don't think they're letting a lot phase them, much like I thought last year, honestly. So, you lost series to the Rockies and Athletics last season. So luckily, heading into the Braves series, you get two of those. You win both of those series against the Rockies and Athletics back to back. So, hopefully we can get this first series win against Atlanta.
How, Tim, when you look at the Braves and you look at the Mets and the Phillies, and then you compare them to a Dodgers team that makes a lot of contact. I mean, are we talking about a Phillies team that is very, very streaky, and it all depends on how they do that week? I mean, what's your perspective when you look at those lineups?
Well, I think they're making a little more contact this season. Trey Turner has kind of focused his attention in that regard, but this still is a team that's streaky. And, if you get a week that Kyle Schwarber is not hot, you're probably in trouble, or Bryce Harper's not hot. And, Bohm has been streaky this year. Castellanos has been streaky. So, yeah, I do think you still are a streakier team, and you're relying upon that you're going to be hot at the right time.
How do you fix that? I mean, do you just – I mean, with this team – yeah, exactly. Like, do you just break up the team, essentially? That seems to be my only solution.
Yeah.
Can I just throw a comment in here to that exact point? Baseball is about staying healthy, right? And if we stay healthy, what we're doing here should be enough to go potentially a very long way in the playoffs. I mean, obviously, if we can make the bullpen tighter, that would help a ton. But the offense actually is better than last year. It's not just Turner who's taking more pitches. They all are. And, Casty has reverted to bad Casty the last week. But I'm really hopeful that, that he understands how important it is to not chase. And I look at the team and I feel like where we are is like really great. And what worries me is that we won't stay healthy, right? And that we'll lose players we can't afford to lose. And, we've got to get that right because our AAA team's imbalanced. We got some really interesting offensive pieces. We just don't have the pitching pieces we want.
Well, if you remember too, Roger, to back up your point, last year, remember they lost Trey Turner. I think it was the first week of May, and they lost JT like pretty much right after that, and
right.
It took them a while to get going. That's why I was so impressed with them winning as much as they were last year. That now you're right. They outside of Alvarado's suspension, what's the significant injury on this team?
Well, you started with Ranger, but
yeah, exactly.
Other than that, it's been pretty solid. And my point is that kind of thing does build. And if we stay healthy, I mean, with Atlanta coming in, I mean, Acuna, unlike the first time he blew out his knee, this time he came back on fuego, right? And so that's terrifying. I'm quite hopeful that Strider is still adjusting to being back, right? He hasn't pitched very deep. He's got dinged up pretty badly. But, you know, we still have to face Sale. And I don't know who's pitching the second game.
Smith, we'll see that in momentarily. But Smith, Schwarber is going to pitch the middle game.
Oh, okay. But, you know, I look at this and, you know, I'm not afraid of the Braves, right? I'm not afraid of the Dodgers. I mean, I was afraid of the Dodgers at the beginning of the year, but, man, they burned through their pitchers.
The Mets certainly weren't afraid of the Dodgers.
By the way, they have them on the DL until September.
Right. No, sorry. No argument. But, you know, the reality is that their bullpen is throwing just an insane number of innings, right? And you just look at that, and come September and October, the Dodgers they're going to have to trade at the deadline because they've just burned through a whole bunch of guys who they can't count on anymore.
Maybe that's their plan. Just
maybe
burn these guys' arms out. We got the money. We'll figure it out.
Nick, when you see the Braves, I mean the Phillies players, I mean, which one? I mean, what's your take in terms of kind of the one that has the pulse of the city?
Right now, probably Schwarber because he's still hitting bombs, and he's like the only one hitting bombs. You know, a lot of people look at the lineup and saying they're not mashing the way they normally do, and Schwarber's up at the top of the league in homers. So I think people really just I said it in a group chat. I'm not going to pull it up, obviously, but I think it was 2 days before Rob Thompson moved him behind Harper. I was like, Harper's got like no protection in this lineup. And I thought Schwarber was the only guy that made sense in this lineup to at least try that. And he was still leading off at the time. And I think it's worked out for, you know, what this stretch run has been. I think that's kind of your lineup right now. And I think Schwarber is the guy that whenever he comes to the plate, people are like tuning in. You know, it's like must-see TV almost. He's like the only guy right now. And that's not to say everybody else is bad. It's just like he's the only guy that you kind of expect to mash when it comes up. So, and you guys were talking about health earlier, and I kind of hope this year, if somebody like suffers a hyperextended elbow, give him rest. Give him like a week off. Give him 2 weeks off if needed. I don't think they did that enough last year when you guys got Stott and Harper that had elbow issues. Just give them time off. I know, like, you were at the top of the league. You weren't necessarily fighting for a playoff spot, and I know they want to play when they're capable of playing, but I think it obviously hampered them down the stretch. I'd like to see just guys take off. If they have a little nagging thing, give them some extra time. I don't think it's necessary to play them just because they feel good. And obviously when they you can see them struggling.
Well, and you look at Lehigh Valley. Lehigh Valley has people at almost every position who can at least hit, right? They may not be able to field, but, you know, you've got people who can play numerous positions down there. I mean, that team has won more than 2/3 of its games. And, you know, they're doing it not with great pitching. They're doing it with great hitting.
Serious question, Roger.
The one thing go ahead, Jeff.
This is more of a fun question because they were playing the Rockies last. Anybody think the Iron Pigs could beat the Rockies? Like, no. Dead serious?
No.
No, the Rockies beat the Yankees, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
no, I mean the gap between AAA and the majors.
It is, but the Rockies pitching, I think Lehigh could hit it. The problem is,
I think Lehigh could hit it. I think the issue would be that our pitching, starting. I mean, we have guys like Rangel, right, who have ERAs around 5, I think he's still undefeated, right?
Yeah, he is. I don't know how, but outside of Mick Abel, but they definitely could hit Colorado. I'll just say that.
Yeah, for sure. I think they can hit most major league teams between 200 and 250 or 260. I mean, which is to say enough to patch a hole.
So here are our players of the week in the minor leagues. And I'm telling you, Justin Crawford is making a case to take over center field for the Phillies sooner rather than later.
I'll tell you what, Oscar, I'm going to add on to this. Like, I kept hearing in March, don't be shocked, July, August. He's really accelerating it, man. He is.
I mean, look at the numbers this week. He played 5 games, 412 average, double, a triple, 6 runs scored, 4 RBIs, 2 stolen bases. Look at his on-base percentage. What to me is most impressive out of this is the on-base percentage, 524, and then look at the on-base percentage for the season at 395. I mean, this guy can be, I mean, as they say, God sent and could be your leadoff. I mean, the problem is he's a lefty.
Yeah,
another lefty.
By the way, that's leading his 395 on base percentage is leading the International League amongst leadoff hitters. It's top 10 in the league overall.
The thing that stands out to me here is this segment is sponsored by Phillies Tailgate, and Tyler kept saying all week
he's in Europe, man.
I'm on vacation.
Yeah, where's he at? Where's he at now?
There won't be any more posts for 72 hours, and then there'd be like within 10 minutes a post about.
I mean, Tim, seriously speaking, I mean, Justin Crawford is making a case, and I'm telling you, I'm not looking anybody separating themselves in our center field, particularly from a hitting standpoint. I mean, look, it's going to be very, very interesting. To me, they're bigger. Next week, we'll talk a little bit about trade deadline. I know you wrote some things about trade deadline, Tim. We'll want to talk about this because this is a very, very interesting topic. What's going to happen at center field for the Phillies and what's going to happen in the bullpen? Because those, to me, are the 2 positions, the 2 areas that we need to solidify as we enter the postseason, and I'm liking that 395 on base percentage.
Well, what happens to Brandon Marsh? You can't bring Crawford up if Kepler and Marsh are both still on the team.
I'm telling you, I understand what you're saying. I'm just looking at the numbers.
Well, I'm
looking at the potential.
You could trade one of them. You could also trade Justin Crawford. So I think.
But do you want to trade Justin Crawford? Is the question.
Depends.
We'll talk next week. I mean, let's leave that question about the trading deadline for next week because this is going to be a very important one. But to me, the 2 positions or the 2 areas of this team that needs to be solidified is leadoff, center field, and the bullpen. Those are the 3 areas that we require the most support to be able thinking about World Series. Roger, your thoughts on that?
Well, I just one simple thought. Position players who have a starting job in the major leagues at 21 make the Hall of Fame at a completely insane rate, right? Obviously, the ones who are 20 and 19 make it, most of them make it if they stay healthy. But 21 is still an age where you can have an incredibly long career. And if they trade Justin Crawford, I'm going to be really cranky because, the kid's got huge issues, but they never seem to affect his numbers.
Hey.
And I'm looking
at the numbers. I let the numbers do the talking.
He's fast as can be. He plays a pretty decent center field. I think,
44 games, 35 runs.
I'm intrigued by him, but I think there are red flags. When you hit the ball on the ground 60% of the time, like Bryson Stott's a contact hitter. That's like 20 points higher than Bryson Stott. So
no argument. But he's also a ton faster than Stott. Okay,
that's pretty fast. But yeah, he is.
I mean, this kid is he's Rojas Turner fast, which means he's going to be one of the fastest guys in the majors when he gets there.
Again, and I will back Tim up on this too. Like, I know there have been teams that are interested in. They were interested in last year, and the Phillies just did not want to move him. They loved his potential, especially when he went up to Reading. That was one of the talking points when he got called up to Reading was, they're just showcasing him for teams. And there were a lot of White Sox scouts there. And there were a lot of Cubs scouts in Reading last year, and they just never pulled the trigger. And, Dave Dombrowski pretty much said that, he's one of our untouchables. And I'm curious to see if that's going to be the same this year because
I don't think that's the case necessarily. Like the report from I think it was Matt Gelb that the Phillies made an offer for Crochet that included Justin Crawford. So I think in the right scenario.
Well, yeah. But Crochet.
I'm not.
Crochet was different. Yeah.
Crochet's barely older than Crawford.
They wouldn't put Andrew Painter in that. So I do think there's a different category of untouchables that, like, Mick Abel and Justin Crawford, you might not want to trade, but they're not like the end of the. You're not hanging the phone up either.
Yeah, they're not Eduardo Tyatt or Andrew Painter, for example.
Right.
So the pitcher of the week is a kid at Clearwater that has been lights out over the last 30 days. 5 games started, 2-1, 1.64 ERA, 22 innings. He has not struck out that many, but the kid has been completely lights out. Has a very good sinker with a 4-seamer, a cutter, a slider, and a changeup. This is a kid we got on the 15th round. If I recall correctly, from San Joseph University. So look, there is potential here in the minor leagues. The whole idea around this is to show not only the guys that are close to ready to make it to the majors, but also those guys that may be promising down in the minor leagues. So that's basically some of the things here. Let's talk, Nick, about the Atlanta series. I mean, it's what happened. I mean, when you look at what's trendy and what happens, I mean, when you look at the Mets series versus the Atlanta series, how does that changes from a social media standpoint?
Social media wise,
in general.
man, like if they lose tomorrow night, people are going to panic. If they win tomorrow night by 1 run, people are probably going to panic, depending how they win. Like, did they just beat Atlanta by a little bit, and was it a sloppy game, stuff like that? People pay attention to that more than I do. I focus on the game. Like, I'm like, oh, that could have been better, whatever. But it's all about wins and losses in the regular season. I mean, you got to pad them now. You got to win 2 out of 3 here. If they lose this series, it'll be disappointing, but it's not going to completely derail the season. But again, it's not going to feel good either. And then you have Milwaukee coming up. So you went 6-1 on the road, which, by the way, I don't think anyone kind of expected the Phillies to win 6 out of the 7 games in Colorado or Sacramento. But again, they could have lost that A series pretty easily. And so it's really like, do they come back? Like, do they just move forward? Do we see some of that offensive failure type thing, the last, like, especially the A series, kind of creep back a little bit? Or can they take advantage of Atlanta and they're kind of like Jekyll and Hyde type season right now, where some days they look like the Atlanta of 2 years ago, and then other days they look like the Atlanta of last year. So just gotta hope. I hope they take 2 or 3, and I think like everyone will kind of like be even keel after that, as long as they win that Brave series.
So Strider, I'm looking here at Strider. His last game was at Washington, 4 innings and a third, 6 hits, 4 runs. He allowed a home run, 1 base on balls, and 3 strikeouts. I mean, without a doubt, he's not right now in his best. I mean, he's not up to par right now. I seen him throwing. I saw him in the spring training throwing, and he looked really, really good. And then he got hurt, and that was the story. I mean, he was coming up. I mean, he was striking out something like in 2 innings he would strike out. I mean, in 3 innings he would strike out 8 batters. I mean, the guy was completely lights out in spring training before, and then he got up, got hurt, and then came back again, and here's where we are. So, I mean, Tim, what do you expect from a Strider and the pitching staff of Atlanta in this series?
Well, it's potentially like what you had with Sandy Alcantara earlier this year, where you are maybe catching a guy at the right time, because we know Spencer Strider, even though the Phillies have beaten him in the playoffs a couple times, we know that he is one of the best pitchers, probably top 5 pitcher in baseball when he's healthy. So, if you're the Phillies, you have to hope that. Chris Sale, that's going to be a tough one. I think Chris Sale is probably the toughest pitcher for a left-handed hitter to hit in baseball, and the Phillies have an entire lineup of left-handed hitters. So, and that's not to say Schwarber's mashed lefties, I get it, but like even Bryce Harper will have a tough time hitting Chris Sale if he's on. Yeah. So you better hope you win those first 2 games, and then the third one you're playing with house money.
He allowed 1 run in each of the last 2 games, pitching 7 innings at Boston and against San Diego at home.
Yeah, and when we talked about this like a month or 2 ago, when the Phillies were in Atlanta, Chris Sale did not look like himself, and you wondered if he was hurt or something. He seems like he's figured some stuff out.
Yeah, that's the game we won, wasn't that the game that we won in Atlanta?
I believe so, yeah.
I thought that was the game that we won there. And then
is that the one Wheeler started, and Wheeler didn't even look like himself?
Yeah,
exactly. It was Wheeler against Sale. I mean, great matchup, and neither of them pitch at their peak. And then Smith Schwaber, this is a guy that has been coming up for them. I misspell it. Come on, Tim. How you say Schwarber? How about that? Smith Schwaber.
Castellanos.
Oh, thanks, Tim.
Yankees, you guys, come on, guys. I'm trying, dude. I want you guys to say it in Spanish now, by the way. Look, this kid has been coming on. He's been a prospect for them for a number of years, and he's been coming on and pitching really, really well. I don't know if he pitched well in his last start. That's the one that I wasn't. I think he pitched really well 2 or 3 games, and then he started coming down. So I'll look for it here. Thoughts on the series, Jeff, from your perspective?
I mean, it's a big series for sure. I don't like the fact that they're facing Strider and they're facing Sale, but that's who you're going to face in the postseason anyway if you're facing the Atlanta Braves. So, I mean, like they're facing Wheeler, they're facing Sanchez, they're facing Suarez. I mean, I think the Phillies are home. They should take 2 of 3, but I'm not going to be upset if they lose 2 of 3. But look, they're 1-5 against the Mets and Braves this year. I think it's time for them to turn that around.
Yeah, that's without a doubt. That's a fair point. Any additional perspective on this series, guys? Roger, from your end, any final thoughts?
So I look for cues from Harper, because Harper, he has so much respect for Atlanta as an organization that I just think that when we play those guys, our guys are always completely focused. And I don't think that solves the problem with Sale. But I do think that everybody's going to show up. And, I expect, I'm really hopeful that we'll have a great series. I really am. And what I really want to see is that it was the dugout the mound in Sacramento, and that Sanchez is back in form when he's home, that Wheeler is back in form when he's at home, and that Ranger's back in form when he's at home. And, if we get really good starting pitching, we can beat them all 3 games.
Wonderful. Nick, any final thoughts from your end?
No, I just want to see some excitement, and winning a series against the Braves will bring that. I mean, there's excitement already, but I'm saying, I feel like a lot of.
I want to hear Oscar with some just Titanic for monster home runs against the Braves. Right?
I want to post some clips, man.
Exactly, Oscar. We're counting on you to have a big series. Okay,
hey, I'm. Let me get ready.
By the way, Nick, I get your point about Schwarber's at bats being a must watch. It does kind of feel like Ryan Howard in 2006, where every time he was up, you just wanted to see him hit. I mean, Schwarber's on pace for 56 home runs right now, which is incredible.
Tim, any final thoughts?
I think they'll take the first 2 and probably lose the third, but you still get 2 out of 3 in that scenario. So when you're up, they're up 9 games right now, you're in a pretty good spot if you take 2 out of 3.
Yeah, but at least it's a night game. If it was a getaway afternoon game, we'd lose for sure. But this way we got a fighting shot, right? A fighting shot winning a night game.
Well, the Mets are 5-5 in the last 10. The Braves are 4-6. So they started well, and then suddenly they've been kind of lacking over the last few days. So it'll be very, very interesting. Last thought, anything on the Nationals? I mean, the Nationals they're 7-3 over the last 10 games. Do you see any way they come back to this race? They're 10 games behind.
No.
They have a nice young core, though.
You don't want to play them.
Yeah. We still have, I think, 10 games against them or something like that.
Yeah, no, they're hard work, man.
I mean, look, they were paying the opening series. You could see they had good players.
Yeah, I mean,
the problem is this: at the end of the day, this is what they're lacking.
Well, they have the worst bullpen in baseball.
Yeah, their bullpen is awful, and they don't have their ownership situation needs to get sorted out badly, so they start spending again.
Well, either that or just trade some of those guys to us, and I'll be very happy.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Hey,
They
guys,
got the Dodgers there.
They got 5 or 6 guys I would take like this, right? I mean, they got lots of really good young ball players. I mean, the guys they got for Soto, every one of the guys they got for Soto is worth something.
It's still rather have one Soto.
I love how Abrams hits. That kid, that leadoff kid, he's
CJ Abrams. Oh yeah, he's a stud.
He's a stud. He can hit. Not a great shortstop, but a great. I mean, what a hitter!
And how about Wood? I mean, Wood.
I love James Wood. Like
Wood
that was one of those guys you just heard about. Like the second he got traded, you're like, oh yeah, this guy's going to be a really good player, and then you see it firsthand.
Yeah, and Cruz hasn't hit yet, but he will. He's number two draft pick after Skeen. So, guys, thank you so much. A happy Memorial Day to everyone. I mean, we still remember those guys that were here. Thanks to them. So, thank you for joining us today on a very special day for Memorial Day. And we're thinking of all the families that have lost someone. And again, thank you so much for a great Phillies Weekly. Nick, man, this is your house, man. Anytime, brother.
Dude, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. And
the MVP.
Let's go.
There's the MVP.
Let's
the
go
MVP
win
of the
this
Phillies
series.
is Harper. Look, the MVP of the Phillies is Harper. My MVP is Nick Piccone. There's the man.
Oscar, hire him to be your PR guy, man. That's what you need.
He's the man. He's the man. Hey, you can be.
Yeah.
And Tim is the agent. He already
signed
me up.
Tim can write it up, and I'll be the fan.
You guys are the best. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful week. And go Phils. Thank you, guys. You guys are the best.
Lanzamiento, aquí viene un batazo de Mundito entre right center field, la bola pica, se extiende, viene anotando Stott, empata el juego, también manda para la bola Turner anota y los Phillies se van arriba. Se prepara, Mundito en segunda, el lanzamiento, batazo profundo para el center field, la bola se va, Schwarber Bob, campanazo. Aquí viene el lanzamiento. Swing y